Hello, I'm Chris Lee of Vandy Sports. This is our Wednesday Roundtable podcast. As always, I am joined by Billy Derrick of Vandy Sports and Luke Wyatt, longtime Vanderbilt athletics employee, now retired. We will get into baseball and whatever the mailbag brings us. Before we get there, we remind you this is possible due to the generosity of several people and organizations. The first of which is Anchor Impact. Billy, I'll have you get that one ready. They're our presenting sponsor. Reminder, our basketball content, we may get into the transfer portal stuff in a minute, depending on where the mailbag goes and where time takes us. That is brought to you by the Wash House. If you are dreading laundry day, if it is stealing time from the things you truly enjoy, let the laundry professionals at the Wash House take care of that for you. 2 convenient locations in the greater Nashville area. Drop off your dirty laundry. Their professional attendants will give you back the one thing you can never have enough of, that's your time. Within 24 hours, you can pick up your nicely folded, fresh, and clean laundry ready to be put away. Check out washhouseclean.com. Stop in today. Get your time back. Baseball season presented by the Murfreesboro Pure Milk Company, a family-owned third-generation milk and ice cream distribution company located in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Partnership began over 50 years ago with Purity Dairy in Nashville to provide Purity milk and ice cream to consumers in Middle Tennessee. Now they serve Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama, Chattanooga, North Georgia. Today they supply grocery stores, convenience stores, others with Purity products, as well as Mayfield, Nestle, and Haagen-Dazs ice cream. For more information, visit the website mpmci.com. Yeah, help the people who help those out. Help us out. Buy your Purity ice cream at your local store. It is delicious. The homemade vanilla, my favorite flavor there, but they got a bunch of good ones. And Steve Andrews and the folks at the Wash House business local to the Nashville area. Wonderful human being. We all need time. I need time these days. Check those guys out. They'll help you get your laundry clean and get part of your life back. With that, Billy, tell us about Anchor Impact, please.
Yeah, Commodore Nation, you can get closer to Vanderbilt athletics than ever before with Anchor Impact. They are the official NIL collective for Vanderbilt. You can gain access to unmatched exclusive coverage and be part of a one-of-a-kind community. As an Anchor Impact member, you gain exclusive privileges and benefits, offering deeper engagement with student athletes, coaches, staff, and the entire Vanderbilt community. You also become a catalyst for change, redefining the landscape of college athletics and showcasing the potential impact of NIL on student athletes' lives. Join the mission of Anchor Impact to support student athletes and elevate Vanderbilt athletics to new heights. Become a member today and be part of this impactful journey. Help the Commodores thrive and contribute now by logging on to anchorimpact.com/register.
All right, gentlemen. A win over Louisville in the rearview mirror. I was at Hawkins Field on Tuesday night as Vanderbilt got good pitching and defense to get a really much-needed win over Louisville. I think moved up from 27 to 22 in the RPI. So the RPI there remains to be seen if the conference record will be there. Vanderbilt's got 2 huge series with Tennessee at home this weekend and Kentucky in Lexington, both top 5 teams in the polls. Tennessee number 1, I think number 8 in the RPI. So Vanderbilt might not get the RPI boost with the win or 2 over Tennessee that series win would be more indicative of in terms of the talent. I guess let's just start with baseball today. Luke, a lot at stake this weekend.
Oh, a whole lot. The difference in this team and a lot of teams on the road and at home is just mind-boggling. You know, we sit here at 26-6 at home. 3-7 on the road. I guess we're count the 3 neutral site wins, but I've never seen a year to where a Vanderbilt team and maybe some other teams there's been so many run rule games where you just completely out of it. And part of it is, and Chris, you alluded to this a little bit with Coach Corbin last night. Man, if you throw anything in the zone, people are blistering it. Not just home runs, but they're hitting line drives in the gap or whatever it may be. And it used to be you could miss with a pitch and they'd foul one off. You don't see that anymore. And I don't know whether it's and one thing and no one really talks about this. I wonder if the pitch clock has anything to do with the effectiveness of the pitching. Because
I don't know. Carry on, and I have a response to that.
Well, I was going to say, I remember some guys that were, used to aggravate you because they were so slow at coming to the plate forever between pitches, but they were effective. As much as you hate watching that, I'm just wondering if guys now are so worried about that pitch clock and they are looking at it out of the corner of their eyes, so they're not focusing on what they're doing. I don't know, but the pitching has either gotten worse or we have these magical bats. Something's going on.
Yeah, I mean the causes thing that's Pandora's box, so we probably won't go there today. But I mean you can attribute to whatever you want, but the conditions have changed to where it very much favors the hitters. I mean, I think you've got major league pitchers in this league who struggle night to night to get people out. Again, whether it is just out of the factory conditions with the bats, the balls, whether it's something else, I'm not going to get into that. And I really don't want us to get into that today. But whatever, I think the evidence is undeniable in front of you that the conditions have changed to favor the gorilla ball type teams. And Tim Corbin talked last night. I think the point he was trying to make was he talked about Randy Arozarena hitting a home run that was, I think, 105 off the bat and went 450-something feet. That's a major leaguer who's bigger and stronger than these guys that are playing college ball, or should be by virtue of age and experience. I mean, when you're older and when your year-round job is to play baseball, where there's these kids, I guess it is their year-round job, but they also have school and maybe other things going on. You should be able to hit the ball further. I think his point is you've got guys who are hitting the ball harder in terms of exit velo and further at times. And again, whatever the cause, we're not going to go there today. Something has happened where you've got 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are hitting balls harder and further than Major League Baseball players with bats that are supposed to be designed to perform just like wood. So I don't know what's up, if it's the bats, if it's the balls, if it's both, but something has happened to where it feels like you cannot pitch in this league most of the time. And you've seen some guys who have pitched from time to time. And maybe there's a reason for that. There's a couple of guys that gotten busted, including one that we have covered. But that's a lot of words to say something is up and the game has changed. And some teams have benefited by, I don't know if adapting is the right word, but they're more suited to win this way than others.
Until they change the rules or the way this sport has changed, nothing's going to change. And I think you and Corbin kind of felt like hinted at that, maybe there are changes coming this offseason, which I think obviously would benefit a program like Vanderbilt. But until it does, the same schools that have the power numbers are going to be the same schools. So that's just kind of the day and age we're in. And obviously I think everyone knows that Corbin and this staff, not fans of it, but they're going to have to see what they can do. I mean, you mentioned it, Chris, these next 2 weekends are their season. I mean, they're fighting for their tournament life. And I know there's been a lot of talk on the board about how many more wins do they need. And I think it's a really good question because, Luke, I think you mentioned it on the board a few days ago that Vanderbilt got into the tournament with 12 wins one year. They've been into the tournament with 13, I want to say. Obviously, 14 will get you in. Does 13 get them in this year? If you only get 13, how much damage do you have to do in Hoover? 12 is, I don't know about 12. I think, you need to get at least 2 more here in these next couple of weekends. And if you only get 2, you're going to have to really do some damage in Hoover. If you get 3, I think you're fine. I think, with the RPI at 22, the Louisville win already, Chris, you mentioned it, that helped. I mean, that was a big win RPI wise, confidence wise for this team. So I think that was big, but I would say you got to get to at least 13 wins, but I think getting to 14, you probably feel a little bit more comfortable.
Chris, it's updated, I guess, daily. You would know more than I would, but as of yesterday, I think Florida was still in as a 3 seed.
Yeah.
And they've only got 10 SEC wins.
I don't pay a lot of attention to the projections this time of year. I mean, this is about when I start paying attention because you just got so many big series that haven't been played yet. But I mean, I think I called that. You go back and check the Southeastern 14 stuff I did. I said, guys, look out. I think LSU's got a real sleeper's chance to do some things that might surprise you with this A&M series. And I thought A&M would win it, but LSU won it. LSU 9-15 in the league, 9-14 in the league, whatever the 9-15.
Yeah.
LSU should be in the tournament at this point. I think right now, if you pick the field, you probably would put 11 SEC teams in. And Ole Miss, I don't think Ole Miss is a tournament worthy team, but the RPI is in range. I mean, guys, you've got 13 of the 14 SEC teams in the top 45 of RPI, including Auburn, which is 4-20 in the league.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of baseball outside of this conference unless they're playing, of course, non-conference games. But if there's any teams, but I mean, this is as deep as I've ever seen it, ever. Even back in the days before the BB Corbett and all that, this is by far the toughest. It's a buzzsaw every weekend. I mean, hence Missouri sweeping. Who'd they sweep? Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And Missouri and Auburn are the two bottom teams. I mean, Auburn's sitting there at 4-20, but Auburn just beat Georgia Tech last night. Mm-hmm. And Tech's a pretty good team. We beat Louisville and we've been struggling. It's just it's a tough league.
Yeah, it really hardens you. I mean, Corbin has talked about that. But in terms of where this team is at, I look at them and I say, okay, what has changed? Does the Louisville game change the perception at all of how you think about this program and where they're at right now? I think confidence-wise, if anything, yeah, I mean, it probably carries over. Obviously, exams are over, but I still think for this team to get to the tournament, they're going to have to do some things they haven't done in about a month. Are those things still in this team? And I think they are. Corbin even hinted at it last night. We know what we can do. We've strung innings together before. I mean, in Houston, LSU, and certain series, but they just haven't done it recently. So can they get hot again? I just think that's the question. Does this team have that next level in them? Can they get back to when they were having success? That's what I'm looking at here these next couple weeks, and it's going to take guys like the juniors, Davis Diaz, Alan Espinal, Vastine, to hold up their end of the bargain, because with freshmen, you just never know. Kojal, I think, has played well in replace of Jaden Davis, and boy, would you love to have Jaden Davis this weekend, the best hitter on your team. We'll see about Ethan McIlvain's status. That start to think about some of the injuries that have happened, and you need those guys. But at the end of the day, I think the veterans are the guys that have to step up. But I say that Miller Green went out and closed out the game last night. So, they got some good freshmen, and they've kind of been forced to rely on them. I think that's kind of been a microcosm of this season.
Yeah, a couple things. I think in hindsight, the Chris Maldonado injury might have been the one that hurt them the most this year because it changed a lot. He was one of their better power threats. I think even when he had his 20 at bats or whatever, I suspect he was already hurt based on the numbers. That's number one. Number two, and some of this was just like, I think I counted last weekend against Georgia. They went the first 11 innings of the series without getting anybody on base. Now, I thought their approach at the plate was awful at times. They watch strike one, strike two, and then it feels like the blueprint was throw them a breaking ball in the dirt and make them chase. I thought their approach was awful at times. That's got to be fixed. I think they got a little more aggressive the first inning last night, got a couple runs, and then just kind of went back to what they were doing. Number two, when you don't get guys on base, you can't do what they do. Were you guys a little surprised, Luke, that they didn't try to, throw a bunt down third or first, or just do some things to just try to shake it up until you got some runners? I still think that when you're playing an era of guerrilla ball, where that's what teams are facing in practice, they're not used to making plays against bunts and and stealing bases and things like Vanderbilt does in more abundance or can do in more abundance than other teams do. I feel like a good way to break out of a slump is to make the defense make some plays. And if they do it, then fine. But, sometimes you end up fielding a bunt, you throw it into the dugout, you got a man on second with nobody else, and you've hit the ball, 45 feet. That's a lot to say, Luker, but did you find anything with the strategy that was problematic and that might be helpful going forward if you change it?
Well, there's a couple things. I think you're dead on that. The old, what they used to call Vanderbunt and small ball or whatever, and we were really good at it. I'm not so sure how good we are at that anymore.
Yeah.
Part of it, kids want to hit. They want to swing the bat. If they find out they're doing that, it could hurt recruiting. Louisville, we didn't see it last night, but that was a key to beating Louisville, was keeping them off the bases because they're good at running the bases. The one thing I want to talk about a little bit, if I can, is the approach. You mentioned it at Georgia, how poor it was. I don't know if we use analytics too much. Someone brought this up to me last night, and I'd never thought about this, Chris and Billy, and you guys give me your opinion on this. All right, let's go back to the beginning of the season, how we came out of the gates hitting the ball really well, and we felt good about, wow, this team's going to be really good. They're going to be a doubles machine, which they have done that. But as a whole, too many strikeouts, not enough walks. At the beginning of the year, it seems like they're free and easy. Let's just take Kojal, for example. And let's look at his numbers, how they've progressively gone down. You look at Enrique Bradfield, his entire career, his batting average went down each year. Is it?
Luke is angry at the baseball gods. Yeah.
He probably got a call coming in.
Said something he shouldn't have said, evidently.
The god said, nope, you're done.
Right.
I think what he was getting at, though, was, because he's right about Kojal, kicking off the season well. I mean, he was the MVP. You could have called him the MVP of their trip to Houston. But then you get an SEC play. And, Holcomb, Kojal, I'm not saying Holcomb was hot at the beginning of the year or anything, but I think they needed Kojal to sort of stay above water, and he got a little too deep. But now he's back up. I think Luke's back up, too.
Speaking of back up.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I don't know what you caught or didn't catch, but what I was going to say is I feel like that are we full of too much information when we go to the plate and we're thinking instead of just seeing ball, hitting ball?
Luke, I've heard that postulated before by people who know that program really well. I think I heard that last year. I think there's something to it. I think if you were at the plate, you've got hundredths of a second to make a swing decision. If your mind is tied up in all that stuff, that's probably, I say I'm no hitting expert, but I'm just trying to make sense of what I'm told by people who know the game 100 times better than I do. It would seem to be like if you were sitting up there thinking, and the reaction time is that. If you're overthinking it, the ball's already by you and it's too late. And that seems to be how it plays out.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, and I'm not aiming this at anyone in particular. I'm not aiming this at Tim or Mike Baxter or Browning for that matter. They need a Clint Eastwood. Remember, what's the movie that Clint Eastwood was in when he was the old scout?
Yeah, that one, yes.
Something about the curve or something.
Trouble with the curve.
Good movie.
That's what they need. They need an old grizzly veteran to come in and say, look, guys, hitting ain't this hard. Here's the deal. And they need to hear some of that. They really do.
Especially ahead of this weekend, because they're going to need it. I mean, you don't hit the baseball, you don't score runs against this team, you don't have a prayer.
Right.
Now, you got to pitch well as well. That's the other side of it. Vanderbilt has to pitch better. Now, they have pitched better at home. That's been the difference, a big difference, home and road splits pitching-wise. Because if you look at the numbers, Vanderbilt's middle of the road in terms of ERA in the SEC. They're 8th with a 4.89 ERA. Tennessee is second with 3.84. Now, that was before, last night. But I say that because you got to pitch well. I mean, whenever
Yeah.
Vanderbilt gets quality starts from Cunningham, Holton, and their dudes, J.D. Thompson, they usually win. I mean, that's been their recipe. So, but you also got to score enough so that, that's the other side of it.
Is it illegal to put industrial size fans in the power alleys and have them blowing in? Is that prohibited in the rules anywhere?
I don't know. Probably not
I'm
anymore.
not sure anything's prohibited anymore, but if look, they're getting killed in pitchings, and I say that as a joke, but they're getting killed because they can't keep the ball in the yard. I feel like what I was watching this weekend is guys that were scared to death to put the ball in the zone. It's not like these guys can't throw strikes. They hit 9 batters this weekend. I think that was you try to pitch inside, you miss your spot by a little bit. I mean, what we have seen against these teams like A&M and Georgia in their parks is just a complete
different game.
I don't know what we're supposed to do if we throw pitches like we could normally throw against wood bats or whatever. Maybe the outcome's different. You can't pitch right now. You can't pitch right now. I don't know what, and I think that's what we're seeing. It's not like these kids aren't talented. And this, by the way, I'm sure they're not the only team having this issue. I mean, Carter Holton and Bryce Cunningham are probably going to pitch in the big leagues one day. Whether they have long careers, I don't know. I bet you Ethan McIlvain will get a shot one day. Who knows? Maybe Miller Green, somebody. There are kids on this roster that are going to pitch in the big leagues one day. Now, it may not be David Price, but just getting there is something. They're getting shellacked, the same guys. And I think they just you saw it play out. Okay, well, we can't throw it over the plate. Let's try to pitch inside. Okay, we miss our spot. We hit a guy, and it just all snowballed.
I want to go back to game 2 if I can. Okay, first of all, what you talked about, Chris, 9 hit batsmen, also 22 walks.
Yeah.
22. Now, I will say this, in game 2, and this is when Brownie got tossed, the key point in the game, we had just tied it at 4-4, I think, and then they let Carter pitch through the rain, then let him load the bases, then they call time. That's what got Brownie so mad.
Which was ridiculous, I thought.
Ridiculous. That inning, they knew what was coming, but they made us pitch through the rain and then called it once they got the bases loaded. So that's the first thing. Second thing, Brennan Cyber comes in after the delay. He throws 2 beautiful pitches on the black, gets neither one of them called for a strike. That's the other thing. That zone was so tight with those umpires this weekend. Mm-hmm. Now, whether that's coincidence or whatever, I don't know. But you're right. They couldn't throw a strike. Even if they threw a strike, it wasn't a strike. So what do you have left? Middle. And when you throw middle against Condon, it's going to wind up Atlanta. That's part of it, because there's no way you can convince me that our pitching at home is that much better than what we're doing on the road. But the numbers show that.
Yeah, I mean, you're back in the park. You're back at Hawkins Field, which, I mean, I couldn't imagine if they had to play this team in Knoxville this weekend. And then you go to a Kentucky team where I think the staff, if you're being honest, feels like they match up decently with. Now, Kentucky's good. They're really good. And they do everything Vanderbilt does a little bit better than they do. So that's still going to be tough. But, man, it's just it's hard to see this team winning this weekend, winning this series because of the last month. But you've seen it, and you feel like they can, but I'm not ready to say they can't. But at the end of the day, you got to go out there and do it. It's baseball.
What they did defensively last night is what they got to do all weekend.
Yeah.
They played terrific defense. That's the one thing. You can combat a team that's hitting the ball off the bat at 94 velo on average if you catch everything that's hit to you. Now, if we start throwing it around the yard or dropping fly balls and doing some of that mess we done earlier in the year, then we'll get routed. But, heck, you get routed by anybody when you do that.
Yeah, I think their confidence has been so fragile. I mean, the thing was, we said all along, it doesn't appear unless somebody like Troy Leneve steps up and has a 15 home run year, or a Maldonado or somebody like it developed in that. It didn't appear that they could compete with that type of ball. So what's left? It's running, putting pressure on defenses offensively, it's pitching, and it's defense. And the defense is just done so many I mean, Davis Diaz had a double playground ball go through his legs last week. We've seen 4 or 5 drop fly balls in the outfield. Even when they're not dropping stuff, I've watched so many hundreds of games in that park over the year. Intuitively, when a ball's hit in the air, I'm going, that's an out. And with this team, it's like, no, it's 5 feet to the left or right of somebody, or a guy pulls up and it drops 15 feet in front of him because he knows he can't make the play. Their margins are already that thin, and then that wrecks the rest of it.
Yeah, the pitchers and the defenders know there's pressure on them. They feel the pressure this year because of the lack of power and the lack of explosion in this offense. And they know that. So I think that's probably contributing to the errors. But something I noticed last night, RJ Austin scoops. You mentioned, I mean, he's a first baseman now. I mean,
he's got so much.
Reminds me a lot
better.
of Trey Morgan at LSU, who's athletic and can really steal some outs. And especially with Diaz and Vastine on that left side of the infield, if you're pitching on the mound, if you can tell yourself, I'm going to get some ground balls to that left side and take your chances, that's not a bad plan with this defense. But, they've gotten better and they've gotten more comfortable. Now I think they've played together longer than maybe we expected. I don't know that any of us expected RJ Austin to stay at first this year, but he has, and I think he's starting to really play well. I will say the outfield is going to be key this weekend. I think we saw Bolger miss one early in the game that probably could have been caught, and then you see Polk go in and make a diving catch there late in the game. I think you got to shore up the outfield defense. I'm not saying it's been bad, but you can't have any deadly mistakes, and that's what this team has to avoid. The costly innings that just kill you, where you look back and, well, that was the game. That's happened a little too much, and mostly on the road. But we saw Mississippi State come in here and take 2 out of 3. Vanderbilt won Friday. Cunningham pitched well. Tennessee's a lot, maybe not a lot better, but better than Mississippi State. How does Vanderbilt match up this weekend? I'll be interested to see.
I think the key to this weekend is who Tim chooses to start in the outfield. We need to have the fastest outfield guy. It needs to be Humphrey. I know he hadn't started him. He's just been a late inning defensive replacement, but it needs to be Polk, in my opinion, Polk, Humphrey, and Hewitt.
I agree. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I think, in fact, this came up in the press box last night. I think that Humphrey must not be able to hit, because he only comes in late inning defensive situations in like bunting and running spots. So I think that's probably why we haven't seen him.
What about JD Wright?
Hey, that one to me is a mystery too, because the scouting report I've always gotten on him, like he won the Omaha Challenge twice. Defensively, can play different positions. I don't understand why he has not gotten more of a shot than he has. And I would think there's a reason, but that's a mystery to me too.
Sunday he hits a home run and a single and walks and plays center field flawlessly, and then he doesn't play last night. So I don't know what that is. There's a reason, like you said, there's a reason for it. But that, to me, they got to have their best defensive team they can put on the field. Yeah,
Corbin said they're going to rethink what they do in the post game after the sweep against Georgia.
Yeah,
which, I mean, that's probably smart. What are those adjustments? Is it on the mound? Do they shake up the rotation at all this weekend? I wouldn't think so. I think offensively in the batting order is what he's talking about. Do we see Holcomb this weekend? Is JD Rogers being inserted in right field or center field, the adjustment with some power and some strength, a guy that could hit it out, because you need that. So I'll be interested to see what those adjustments are, because you gotta make some changes after how this team's been playing.
Should we do the mailbag?
Let's do it.
All right. While you're getting that ready, Billy, mailbag presented by Sutherland & Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call, 615-846-6200, see what your rights are and if they can help. Also presented by John Levin and the Maynard Nexus Government Contracts Group, which advises government contractors on all aspects of their needs with the proud focus on matching legal solutions to business needs. Both those sponsors have helped us greatly, especially Southern Belk, which has been with us since the beginning. Should you have a need for their services, and we're not talking to everybody, please use them. Tell them you got that here and help out the folks who help us. Billy, the mailbag.
All right, we're going to start with Ann Arbor Door. Can you remind us how the bat review process works? Seems like there's an evaluation pregame with stickers affixed. Is a missing sticker the only way to review a bat in game? Chris, I think you'd be the guy we tossed this to. I did find a PDF from the NCAA, but this is from 2022, and it talks about the stickers and kind of the obvious things we already know. But I don't know if you have anything to add there, because I don't know if anything's been changed about the process.
No, I'm not deep in the weeds on this. I do know that it's administered by the umpires. As somebody told me this week, I'm not sure the training is in place for everybody to know exactly what they're doing. I don't know what that means. I didn't follow up with the question, and I probably should have. But I think that the testing is done pre-series. And again, to me, the loophole that never got closed is there's a lot that can happen to bats if somebody were so inclined in 2 or 3 days. And I think bats can also make their way. Again, I think these things are not mutually exclusive. I can tell Luke his head's going to explode. These two things are not mutually exclusive. I think everybody could theoretically, every hitter in the country could submit a legal bat for the weekend. Every hitter in the country could theoretically use an illegal bat also, because you can sneak a bat in from the dugout that hasn't been checked. I'm not saying who isn't doing what or how often it's done, but as I read the rules and listen to how they're interpreted, I think literally everybody could say, hey, we are clean because I submitted a bat that tested positive or that tested out within the specs, but literally every single hitter in the country, unless somebody's checking the sticker, and that's assuming a sticker hadn't been lifted off another bat and transplanted onto another one, every single hitter in the country could also be swinging an illegal bat at the same time.
All right, we've got one from Door Fan.
Luke, maybe we'll just let that one go.
Yeah.
Well, this is building on the question from Ann Arbor Door. Do we know what happened with the Vols games against Lipscomb and the Mizzou series, where there was a dearth, however you pronounce that, of power from the Vols? Even last night, they beat Queens University 6-3 and with only one home run.
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Oh, man.
Yes.
You might already know the answer to that question. Do you think that Corbin can preemptively put a shot across the bow of the Vols using doctored bats that may have previously passed inspection?
Don't do that. Look, let's stop the stuff of they need to doctor bats. And the issue with that is somebody's going to get killed.
Yeah.
And that's the reason it's a big deal. Don't. Yeah.
If anything, stop and don't do it for the safety of the game. Okay.
And it's not just the game. I've said this for 3 years now. What happens when somebody's 8-year-old daughter gets hit by a line drive that's 115 off the bat?
That's
and Chris, one thing about that, last night there was a play over where I sat for most of the game. You know how it ricochets off the stadium, foul balls? Well, there was a dry foul ball off a left-handed batter from Louisville, and it hit a girl, and it cut her open. So, I mean, that's happening, and the ball was probably only hit 90 miles an hour off the bat.
Yeah, and I don't even know. Like I said, this could theoretically be all. Maybe the bats are just that hot, and the balls are that hot out of the manufacturer. But something's wrong.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, especially in this park where, I mean, you're tight there down the line. That's something Something bad could happen.
Well, here's another thing. You saw the kid it was the grown up from LSU got hit in the forehead trying to catch a Tommy White. Now that might have just been that could have happened with a wooden bat anyway, but that made a lot of headlines. You saw that one, I'm sure.
Yeah, he might have had a few too, so I think he was okay.
That's true.
Okay. Rolling along here. We got another baseball one. I think this is a good one from DFW Mark. I'm glad that you brought the subject of the bats up with Corbin in the interview, Chris. Do you interpret his response as him saying there will be changes in the future, whether that be more rigorous enforcement of bat tampering or perhaps a change in the ball seams? Which avenue there? Because I was actually intrigued by that as well. Or maybe it's both. Just changes across the board.
I think everybody has just thrown their hands up. The concerns have been known for 3 years now. Nothing's been done. What it's going to take, it's going to take a death or a lawsuit. It's like, and I brought this up to you guys pre-show. 15 years ago or whatever it was, none of the coaches, the base coaches, wore batting helmets. They wore caps, wool caps like everybody else wore in the field. And then what happened? A base coach got hit in the head with the line drive and killed him. Now they all wear batting helmets, and that'll probably never go back. That's what'll happen. If the offense continues to go, TV ratings are good, storylines are great, superstars are being made, fans love offense, everything's great. Everybody can turn a blind eye to it and point to the scoreboard and point to the ratings. But the minute something happens when there's liability involved, that's when people man up. But until it happens, I don't think anybody will.
Ironically, Chris, one of the reasons that I've heard that we don't use wooden bats besides cost is the safety of the wooden bat splintering and going in the stands. Well, I mean, come on.
Put up nets everywhere.
Yes, put up netting.
That's not, and they've done that most places. That doesn't really happen now. But
no,
and maybe you could say that about the line drives in the stands too. But anyway,
well, I wonder. You're seeing it with some aluminum bats now breaking at the head. I mean, that hasn't been super common, but I mean, you're starting to see it a little more. You got to wonder if that's been a factor there. Okay. Godor's 94. Was Will Perdue sitting at the game with Luke last night? And I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, not the whole game. I had my wife and nephew there, so I sat with them for most of the game. But Will and Coach Lee and Kelly Klippenstein. You guys know Scotty Madison?
I know of him. Know who he is.
Great guy. Looks a little bit like Bill Walton if you look at his anyway, we had a good time with that. But Will was in town to meet with Coach Byington, so we had a good time.
Well, speaking of Coach Byington, we do have a question in regards to basketball. At least I think we did, or maybe you just mentioned that at the top. Anyway, we do need to talk kind of about that transfer, players coming in, guys leaving. Saw where Colin Smith landed at UC Santa Barbara. They've got 2 spots left on the roster. And do they go, do you go forward guard? You got Hemingway from Clemson. AJ Hogard was in the mix there. I'm not hearing great things about their chances of landing him anymore. But they do have a kid, Mark Freeman, they're looking at from Morehead State, and then Christian Reeves. If they can get Mark Freeman from Morehead State, Christian Reeves from Duke, actually, I think they'll be fine. But overall, guys, I mean, it's hard to nitpick what Mark Byington's done in such a short amount of time.
I got a question, and Chris, you would know this. Is it true that like these kids could come in? All right, we have our 13-man roster, and then they go through a semester and go to summer school, and then they can transfer again if they don't like it. Is that true?
What would prevent you?
Okay, I'm just wondering. Hey, because I'm trying to put together what type of team I think we're going to have, and then I'm thinking, okay, some of these guys might not like where they look like they're going to fall on the depth chart after they start playing in June together. And then you may have 2 or 3 guys leaving. You got to re-recruit 2 or 3 more guys. What a
Well,
mess.
wait a minute. When is the portal? I guess the portal is closed. So maybe
in theory.
Yeah.
But
I mean, when does it open again? I can't keep up.
I think after this, all right, if you go to summer school, that's what I need to be enlightened on. Okay, if the kids go to summer school, after summer school's over, they can leave right after that if they're not happy with the basketball situation.
Yeah.
That's got to change.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff needs to change, but
Yeah, we did have a basketball one there. Can this team get to 15 wins? I mean, I'd say yeah. Now, again, we might look at this. They might have some injuries, and that might change. But, I mean, as of right now, I think this team, and word on the street is that, there's some coaches around the league even taking notice of what Byington is doing, and that Vanderbilt is back to an extent to competing and back to being what they know they can be in basketball, and that they are to be maybe not feared yet, but I mean, you got to already keep an eye on them, with what Byington has been doing. Okay, we do have a football one, and we'll wrap it up with this one with maybe some quick answers from VU Superior. What does the offensive execution look like in fall camp with Pavia at quarterback? It's hard to answer. I mean, obviously, I think with new players coming in, some new offensive linemen, I think they're going to secure Stephen Hubbard from UTSA. I've heard, and so that'll be good. They've picked up a couple other offensive linemen. I think they're going to get the Liberty kid that Coach Klanakis has done a great job with. And so they're going to bolster their offensive line. So naturally, Pavia should look better behind a better offensive line. Do they add a receiver here or there? They actually did add Darian Wiley from, I think, Louisiana Monroe, who I think is a pretty good player. So I think it'll look better. What exactly will it look like? I'm not sure, Luke, but, and I said this last podcast, the more I think about it, the more I start to convince myself Pavia might eventually be, the guy that gets this team over the top. I'm just saying that out of, my intuition. I'm not saying Nate Johnson won't play because there's going to be packages for him, but I'm starting to think about Pavia a little bit more.
I think when we start the first game, it'll be Nate Johnson, but I think Diego Pavia will be our quarterback as the season moves forward. Now, again, I think they both will play, and I'd like to see one more receiver that can stretch the field. I don't even care if he can catch the ball, just somebody that can clear out one side so you can open up what they want to do offensively.
Yeah, they're also getting the transfer from Minnesota offensive lineman, I believe.
Right.
Oh, McConnell. Yeah, they got him.
And I think they are getting more help at receiver. I don't. You guys know what my last couple of weeks. I can't remember what's been made public and what's not. So I'll just keep that to myself. I don't think it's they're not getting a first team All Big Ten guy or something like that coming. So don't everybody temper your but it should help, I would think. I think their aim is to be unpredictable. I think what New Mexico State did going down to Auburn and winning is probably a pretty good blueprint for what they want to be.
On the defensive side, this next question, this will be the last one here from VU Superior. Lost in the headlines of all the new offensive coaches, we have a new DC, and his name is Clark Lee. It wasn't that long ago he was considered to be a top 10 defensive coordinator in the country. Talent issues aside, will we see a significantly more well-coached defense this year? I think yes. Now, and we've talked about this. The easy answer there is yes, absolutely. Now, you got to remember you're still in the SEC, and similar to the guerrilla era of baseball, offensively in the SEC, everybody's starting to do the same thing, whether it's Josh Heupel, Lane Kiffin, Alabama with DeBoer now. Texas with Ewers and them coming in. I mean, even Auburn now. Like, that's a challenge. I mean, that's you're playing against the best offenses in the country. And so, do they improve to be middle of the pack in the SEC? Maybe not. but do they improve significantly a few spots? Maybe they get up to 9th or 10th in the SEC in terms of, defensive yards, per game, whatever stat you want to look at. But at the surface, Luke, and we've talked about this, that they're going to be better. They're going to, they're going to be more connected, I think, and they're going to play with more energy and confidence. And every player I've talked to said anytime I ask about Clark being the DC, playing under Clark as the DC, everybody just starts smiling. They kind of get giddy because I think everybody's having fun again defensively, and they needed that.
Well, what Clark will do is simplify things and identify guys that can do. In other words, he's not going to have guys on the field that can't execute what he wants to do. I think last year that was one of the biggest problems. We had guys on the field rotating in. And I think you may have, if you look closely, you would have noticed Clark's frustration with that. We would be in a situation on 3rd and long where he didn't like the personnel. You could see him shaking his head or getting mad or yelling into his headset, where he was like, why is he in the game? That type of thing. That won't happen with Clark. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some hiccups, but he's going to have guys on the field that can execute what he wants them to do.
That's all we got, Chris.
Yeah. We're out of here.
Let's do it. Big weekend.
Big weekend. We'll be there. Thanks to Billy and Luke for joining me. I'm Chris Lee. This is the Vandy Sports Podcast presented by Anchor Impact. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you again soon.